Wondering how your mindset affects your life? How to bring more energy into your business and life? Millions of people around the world ask these same questions daily. You are in the right place. Learn practices that will help give your life the meaning and success you've been searching for. Welcome to the Charge Podcast, teaching you how to create habits around real goals every day. Practical life advice from those who made it. Here's your host, Gary Wilbers.
Chargers, it's been a change of pace these last 6 weeks for our world, but let's take the positives that's come from this pandemic. I know I appreciate some of the smaller things in life that I took for granted before. How about the smell of fresh flowers blooming, the beauty of trees budding to life, and the fresh cut of grass? As we start to move forward in this month of May, don't let the time just pass you by. Let's remember to live each day with that openness to experience life and be grateful for the small things in our life each day. My hope is you have renewed in yourself a new sense of wonder to take each day as a blessing. Let's remember to be present in our life and not just get through life. Remember our mantra of charge? Create habits around real goals every day. Chargers, I recently recorded a webinar entitled Positive Habits Equal Positive Results. If you are a leader who struggles with how to handle the daily stress in your life, with high performance coaching, we've created a framework that helps leaders gain clarity, energy, courage, productivity, and influence. When you get clarity, you get the feeling of full engagement, joy, and confidence that comes from consistently living from and into your full potential. To view this webinar, go to chargepodcast.com and we will have a link to the webinar on the page. Each week this month, we have a great guest lined up that will give you a perspective on how you can live your life with high performance. Our guest today is going to share with you her no-fluff, brutally honest, faith-based take on marketing and social media. Megan shares with us that it all starts with relationships, just as Jesus did. Megan shares some great takeaways that you can easily implement into your business and life. Let's learn how we can prosper in our marketing efforts in the world today. Chargers, welcome back this week for another great podcast. I love bringing different guests each week to give you a different perspective. And this week, we've done the same thing. But before I do that, I really want you to do me a favor. Our podcast keeps growing each and every week, but it's because you're sharing it with other individuals. Will you do me a favor before you get off of this podcast? Listen to it first, but once you get off, will you go and like and share it and give us a review on whatever platform you use? We've got Apple, Google, Stitcher. We're on them all, but give us a review because that allows more people to see our podcast, and that is the real key. So today I am excited to share with you something that I think is a topic that you will be really interested in. Megan Dyer is a highly regarded digital marketer, social media and brand strategist, and a sales trainer. She has been helping businesses and individuals grow their brands online and offline for over a decade. As the CEO of Prosper Media, host of the Prosper podcast, and a mom of 7, yes, you heard that right, a mom of 7, Megan brings something a little different to the table than the average digital marketer. She brings the Bible. In a world of manipulation marketing, Megan aims to help her clients prosper through sound biblical principles. Megan, it is so great to have you on the Charge Podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. It's so great to be here.
Well, we are going to have a great conversation because, of course, I had told you before we came on, sometimes the best part about having podcast guests on the podcast is I always have that friend out there, you know, that person that's right next to you that I'm trying to really learn for them. Well, that friend today, I'll be honest, is me. So I know I'm going to learn something out of this, but I know our audiences will also. But before we really jump into that, I ask every guest the same question. It's my mantra, charge. Create habits around real goals every day. What habit do you think has led to success in your life?
I think one habit has definitely been the Miracle Morning. I don't know if you've ever read that book, but I find that I am most energized and most revitalized right in the morning when I first get up. So taking that first hour of my day and just setting that as time to recharge my mind and my soul and get ready for that day. When I'm able to get that done, it makes a huge impact on the amount of productivity and success I have that day.
Well, that one gets spoken about a lot, but I'm a firm believer in it too. And I know we still have plenty of listeners that need to still do that. And I'm telling you, if you give yourself that extra hour, it's worth it. You think the sleep is more important. I guarantee you, once you get into the habit of it, because you got to make it a routine, you will love it. Because I'm in the same way. When I get up in the morning, it really gives me that energy to move forward. Well, Megan, there's a lot of information that I want to share, but I think let's start off with what's the significance behind your name? Your company name is Prosper Media.
So the name Prosper really came just from spending time in the Word and seeing that word used in Scripture a lot. And when I think about prosperity, I think about the gifts that we're given in this life, the success that we can have, and not just money, but prosperity in our lives and our businesses. It means doing things to create a legacy, doing things that are helping others, doing things in our business that are going to make an impact in our communities, in our country, in the world. And so when I think about helping businesses to prosper, it's really helping businesses to achieve those things, to achieve their goals. And so that's where Prosper Media was born.
That's excellent. And I love the philosophy behind it because I think that's really the key. And of course, right now we're in some of that uncertain time where people really have to look at with their marketing, what are they doing there? And I think one area that's really confusing for people is the difference between social media management and social media strategy. And I don't think we have that down yet for a lot of small business owners. So can you share with me your philosophy between social media management and social media strategy?
Absolutely. Social media management is really the basics of social media strategy. If you have someone who is managing your social media, honestly, my 14-year-old daughter could manage my social media. She can post pictures and quotes and share fun articles, and that's great. But if there's no strategy behind it, if there's no foreplanning, then it's really just more noise in the social media world. So a strategist, if somebody is having solid social media strategy, they're thinking long term, they're thinking ahead. What message do I want to share with my audience? What type of motivation can I give them? What kind of information? How can I be a value and a thought leader in my industry? And what ultimately do I want their transformation to be? What do I want them to get from interacting with me? By answering those questions and then incorporating that into your content and ensuring that every single piece of content that you post fits in with that big idea, now you have strategy. Now you're not just sharing things that are entertaining or seem to be on topic. You're taking your audience by the hand and then guiding them down the path that you want them to take with you. So that's the difference mainly between social media management and social media strategy.
Well, it makes a lot of sense because we do strategy and everything else, with our finances. Normally there's some strategy behind it. Normally with our product or service, whatever we're promoting, there's strategy behind it. But understanding in the social media realm, you really got to have a strategy because a lot of people are putting things out there, but is it really bringing you across the goal line to be able to get that sale, to be able to move it forward? What would be one of the things in strategy? I know you do this with businesses, but what's one of the first things you tell people to think about when they're thinking about strategy?
The first thing, it's really a question that I want them to be able to answer. What do I want my audience to get from their interactions with me? And if you can answer that question, and let's say you are a plumber, right? Maybe you're somebody in the service industry, you can still provide value to your audience and have strategy around that. If what you want them to get from their interactions with you is to get an education, to be motivated, to be inspired, to learn something, then we can start with that idea and start crafting your content around that ultimate goal. So the first question has always got to be, what do I want people to get from working with me?
Yeah, that's a great one. And that really starts to lay out the plan that you need to put in place to have that strategy in place. Now, one other thing is so many businesses use Facebook ads. And I hear all the time, I hear business owners, because I do some business coaching too. And, well, we've tried that. And of course, it's always failing. And the challenge is, of course, it's like anything. And I'll be honest, I don't have this down myself, but there's a strategy, there's a process that you have to be able to go through. So instead of just saying, no, that doesn't work, it's really about creating a plan behind it. So why so often does Facebook ads fail for individuals and businesses?
That is such a good question, and I get that all the time. And I think one of the reasons, the most significant reason, is because of a lack of strategy. A Facebook ad in and of itself needs to be one component in a larger strategy. And when I run campaigns for my clients, we start with customer research and market research. We want to find out what their target audience thinks about their product or service, what their fears are, their goals. And by getting that information, we can use that to create an ad that will actually speak to people. And from there, once somebody clicks on your ad, you got to have a place for them to go that's going to solve a problem. So many times I click on ads and it will take me to somebody's website, right to their homepage. Well, that's great. And your website is a fantastic tool. I recommend having one. But once somebody's there, let's say you brought me to your website on an offer that you were advertising on Facebook. And then I get to your website and I don't see that offer. Well, now as a consumer, I'm confused. Do I want to take the time? Do I want to work to go dig this offer out of your site somewhere scrolling around? Probably not. What would be better is to send me to a landing page that is tailored to that specific offer or product that you want to bring attention to. Now you are, again, taking me by the hand as the consumer and guiding me down that path that you want me to take. So one of the biggest things that I see that are causing ads to fail is because what happens after the ad, things fall flat. There's no follow-up. There's no intention in where we're taking people.
Yeah, and that becomes the real key. It's about really having a process that you're bringing them through. So one of the ways that I would tell a business owner to think about it is, if you were going to do this and you were interested in your own product, would you go through the steps that you're putting your clients through right now? And
Absolutely.
if you wouldn't, that would be a great way to ask yourself, well, heck no, it's too difficult. And it would be a great way to really look at yourself and say, how can I make some of those changes that's there? What are some of the other things, and with not just Facebook, but when we're thinking about social media, do we really have to think about in that space? You talked about landing pages, and I'm sure, it maybe sound crazy, but some people still don't understand what landing pages is. So can you kind of give that and what you mean by that?
So a landing page is kind of like a miniature website, if you will. It's one page dedicated to a specific idea or service. And so just to kind of give an example, maybe I'm a travel agent and I want to use Facebook ads, or I want to promote a specific vacation to a resort in Mexico. Well, when somebody clicks on my Facebook ad, if they just end up on my website, well, now they have to go do all this work to find that fantastic vacation. Instead, if I would build a landing page, which is, again, just that one page website where all the content is speaking to this specific vacation, there would be calls to action that are specifically tied to that item. That's going to help me to have a better conversion on those leads that I'm capturing. So landing pages are great tools to help people to have a very simple, easy experience and make it as painless to work with you as possible.
Yeah. And I think the best part about it is really what you got to think about is how you got to make it simple. Because this day and age, if you don't do that, the other person I find, because if I'm searching for something, I can find it somewhere else today on the web. So what you got to
Absolutely.
do is, how simple can you make it for your client to be able to move through it? And, when she talks about call to action, that means there's a place that if I want to buy, that I can buy. Or I also have to have, if I want information and I want to see the rest of the resort, I have places that you can send them to be able to do that, to be able to move through the process. Or maybe 5 things you should think about while you're going to travel. If you're going to do an all-inclusive vacation, and you give them a free capability to download, so then you're capturing some of their data.
Absolutely.
So I love that you talk about where you apply your biggest biblical principles, that you apply those in their businesses today. And I'm curious what you mean by that. And I think I heard a little bit of it when you used the word prosper media. That was there, because I know that's in the Bible a lot. So share with me how you apply that into their businesses today.
So looking at biblical principles, and there's so many great lessons that we can learn from the Bible. It is just a well of information on how we should be living our lives. And so much of that really carries over into business. Principles like honesty, integrity, that we were created to work. Principles like doing things right the first time. We see that all throughout the Bible. And so when I'm working with my clients, all of that is at the core of our strategy and what we are implementing for their business. And one of the best ways to find that, I find, is through prayer. A lot of times we start our meetings with good old-fashioned prayer and just ask for guidance that, we'll be on the same page and have the peace that we know that we're making the right choices, and taking what we know that's in the Word and how it tells us to operate as businesses, and applying that, we find that we're getting better results. Because at the end of the day, when we do marketing, and I'm sure so many people have had this experience, or they've been the victim of this kind of marketing, where you interact with some type of an advertisement, be it on print or radio or television, anywhere, and you just kind of feel icky afterwards. You're like, oh, I didn't like how it was stereotyping me, or that was just too graphic. That's not my, that's not something I want to look at. We see that all the time. And at the end of the day, when you're the consumer, you'll have a negative impression of that brand. But I'm sure we've all heard this quote, right? That you don't always remember what someone says, but you remember how they make you feel. That's what our advertising needs to be conscious of as well. So we want people to feel love and compassion, and we want them to feel trust, and that we're a reliable, credible source, and that you can feel good about working with us. And so applying those biblical principles into the whole marketing strategy, that ultimately is what our end result is. That people can look back at the ads and everything and say, yeah, that's a good company, and I would feel comfortable and trust working with them.
Yeah, and I think what you're doing is you're telling the story of that company, and that becomes the real aspect of who you are and what does your client need to know about you. And I think as we get to understand that, the challenge we have sometimes with this can be, and I have no problem with that because I'm a Christian myself, but some people may be turned off by that because they say, well, if they're not, then your strategies are not going to work for them. How would you respond to that?
I've encountered that several times. I've talked to people who say, well, you know what, I'm a good person. I'm not a Christian, but I don't want to have to be or do things a certain way. And to that, I say that's great. If all of us, if humanity collectively, I think there's an inherent desire to be a good person. And that's ultimately what this is about. By working fairly, and by, an honest day's wages for an honest day's work, and, treating others as you want to be treated. All of that is biblical. And I don't know anybody that I've ever encountered that upon further study of those things would say, oh yeah, I don't want to do that. I want people to distrust my business. I want people to look at my business and say, oh, they're overpricing everything.
Yeah, what does people say about used car dealers,
Exactly. So, I find that these are just wonderful principles to live by, whether you believe in Jesus or not. So it really is for everyone.
Well, and I know a big part of your philosophy is, as I was looking at your website and some of the information before you came on the podcast, it's about relationships and it's about building those. And I think what people are forgetting, and what we found out in some of this uncertain time, is just like you and I right now, we're doing this via Zoom, but we're still sharing information that's there. But it's about the relationship of the people. And I think the thing we forget, we realize that when we're face to face with an individual, but we forget sometimes when we're on social media that it is still about the relationships and how we can really create those. So it's those principles allow us to create those relationships. And I don't even know where I was going with the question there, but I'll just throw out to you. That's kind of the philosophy that you're trying to share with them, is you're not just a brand. It's about the relationship you're creating with them.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, I forget who said this. I think it was Mark Schaefer, said that the most human company wins. And in marketing, that is absolutely true. And what better way to convey that humanity in your business than by operating on these set of principles? People want to interact with a company that they know actually cares about their best interest, that isn't just out for the bottom dollar, that wants to genuinely help people. And that's what relationship is all about. And that's also, that really mirrors what Christianity is about in general, is that it's about relationship with Christ, with God. So it just makes sense that we can take that and utilize that in the business world. And so many people, I think, I did this for a very long time. I felt like that part of me, my faith, and whatever faith you have, but I felt that my faith was something I couldn't bring with me to the boardroom. And you know what? That's absolutely not the case. And since I've done this, since I've been incorporating these things into my business life, it has only enriched and enhanced the experience. So that's, relationships is the ultimate goal in life as human beings. And it should be that same way in our businesses.
Yeah, I agree totally. And I just think what a great conversation to have. I kind of want to go back just a little bit. And we talked about strategy some. You told me your first question to ask. But of course, there's people out there saying, okay, I understand, I hear it, and on that part of it. But where do I make those steps? Where do I find, of course, you're a resource for this, and we're going to share your website that they can. But if I'm out there, because of course we have people that have other alternatives out there. But if I'm out there searching and I know I need a social media strategy, of course, Megan is one of those people that's available. But what would you tell me, being on the side of the fence that you are in that area as a consultant and a strategist, what should I look for if I'm that business that's looking for that person?
So ultimately, you want to look for a business that gets what you're about. I always suggest to talk to a few different options. You can go to Google and just look for marketing companies near me, or social media managers, and you can find plenty of people. I mean, there is a sea of us out there, but the best results you're going to have are from someone who has this skill, but also gets what your MO is. A business, in order to have somebody creating your content for you, they really need to be able to mimic your voice, your company's voice. And so there might be someone who is very technically minded, who would be great for one company, whereas there could be another individual who might be more in tune with emotional aspects of human life, and they might be a better fit for another company. So feeling those out for your brand and finding out what is going to be the best fit so that you have somebody telling your story in the way you want it to be told, that's going to be really how you get that winning strategy.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. And I appreciate you sharing that, because I know you're in the industry and you'd love them to call you. But the thing, what we try to do in podcast is, how do you manage and get through this process and learn from it? And I know, Megan, you've got a podcast. So if they want to learn, share a little bit about your podcast and let the audience know about that, because my audience are chargers. They're trying to learn new material. And if they're interested in a topic, I'd love them to check your podcast out.
Absolutely. The Prosper podcast is all about prospering businesses through biblical principles and winning marketing strategies. And in that podcast, I share information on how you can be effective at marketing and how our biblical principles play into that. So if it's anything from Facebook ads to social content, brand strategy, any of those things, there's always ways that we can make sure we're incorporating the word. And so that's what I walk my listeners through. And we do have a special guest once a month. So I bring in other outside experts who can speak on other topics related to business. So anybody who's business minded and wants to apply the Bible, then this is going to be a great place for you to get information.
Excellent. I appreciate you sharing that. Now, I've got one more question, and it's one that I've been thinking of, but I thought, yes, I'm going to ask it. You're a mom of 7 and you have a business. How do you manage all that?
Well, I work very odd hours sometimes, get up very early in the morning and work late on into the night after the kids go to bed. But it's all about finding that very ugly B word, balance. Balance can be a challenge. And so I'm still trying to figure that one out, but one day at a time.
Right. And take one project at a time. But you've truly made a difference, and some great information you shared there. And I really hope that helps people really thinking about their strategy behind what they're doing. And Megan, if you would share your website real quick before we go to the recharge round.
Yeah. So my website is goprospermedia.com. So check us out at goprospermedia.com.
Please check that out, and check out our podcast too if you'd like. And we'll have all that in show notes. So if you're cutting the grass or you're running right now and you can't write it down, don't worry. Chris does a great job of putting show notes, and it's all in chargepodcast.com. So you can get all that information that's there. Well, Megan, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you 6 questions. They're the recharge round, I call them, and kind of recharge people up. And they're kind of based off of my framework that I speak, because I talk a lot about positive culture and how you can put that in your life. And one of the big things I talk about is mindset. So how do you believe your mindset affects your daily life?
It's everything. My mindset is I have to stay on the positive, because if I don't, there's so much negativity out there, especially on social media. So focusing on what's good, what's right, what's just, Philippians 4:8, that's what I do on a daily basis. I keep my thoughts on things above.
Good. How about the energy? Because you've got 7 children and you've got a business. So what do you do to keep that energy strong each and every day?
I stay rested and I drink a lot of Cuban coffee. I am Cuban, so need that strong espresso. That's a lot of caffeine.
Right. How about the number one connection or relationship that's made the biggest impact on your life?
The number one connection I have to say is Jesus. I feel like that is something that changed everything for me. So that's my number one connection.
What advice has influenced you the most in your life?
I would say loving others. Christ said, love others as I have loved you. And, that's been a great way for me to build relationships and to keep that positive energy in my life. So I try to love others and hope that they can pass it on to the next person.
Excellent. How about your favorite book, and share why you love it?
I just finished reading again the Business by the Book by Larry Burkett, and it's a fantastic advice on kind of the whole thing that I like to share, the business by biblical principles. But he wrote this book decades ago, and it's still so relevant, and that's why I love it, because getting an insight into what was working before the market crash of '08 and all these things, looking at some of those issues and how they're still relevant today. He does a great job painting that picture. So definitely recommend that book, Business by the Book by Larry Burkett.
Great. We'll have that in show notes for you if you want to check that out. My last question for you. You've made it through the gauntlet here. What legacy do you want to leave the world?
The legacy I want to leave the world is that I gave as much away as I possibly could for free. I like to share information as much as I can. I like to teach. I like to bless others. And so I hope that's the legacy that I have, that people will feel like their lives were genuinely enriched by knowing me, and that I brought the light of Christ into our relationship.
Well, I can tell you do that because it comes very naturally. Of course, I'm seeing her on the screen on Zoom video here, and you can tell just when she speaks about it, she has that overwhelming smile and what I would call kind of a glow that you talk about, Megan, and it comes out very well and shows that it's truly who you
Thank
are.
you.
So I thank you for sharing that with us. And I truly appreciate you being on the podcast today and sharing with our listeners, because I know there's some areas here in marketing and strategy that they can really be helped with. And I know you've got a lot of resources on your website. And I think you even said for our audience, you're willing to give them a special, basically, if they want to check you out and would like to do a strategy session, I'll let you share that.
Yes. So I love to sit down with folks and do a free 1-hour strategy session and just take a look at where you're at now, what you're doing now, and where you want to go, and just share my personal strategy on what I would do to get you there. And if that means services that I can help you with, great. If not, at least you are able to take away some thoughts on how you can propel your business into the future. How would they reach out to you to be able to get that? There's 2 ways. If you go to my Facebook page, if you just look up Prosper Media on Facebook, you'll find me there, or you can go to my website, goprospermedia.com, and each one of those places has a button right on top where you can schedule that free strategy session. Excellent. So see, that's that call to action, allowing her to be able to, but she's willing to give that. And I can tell it really comes from the servant heart. So I hope if you need that, I hope you reach out to her, because I know she'd love to be able to share that with you. And remember, check out our podcast, the Prosper Podcast. That's available to you also. Now, Chargers, I think we've given you some great information. So Megan, you've been a wealth of knowledge. So thank you so much. Thank you. It's my pleasure. Chargers, I hope you really realize that this is to help you, to give you information, making your business become human, make it become real, having it bounced by principles that last a lifetime. That becomes the key. If you remember Stephen Covey, when he created the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, they were based on principles because they last no matter when. And if you do that for your business and your marketing aspect, think what it could do to grow your business and really allow you to find new ways to attract business, but not only just attract, but to really grow your influence with people that you want to have that each and every day. So thanks, Chargers, for coming back today and sharing with us and being here on the Charge Podcast. Please, all that information is going to be in show notes. How to get the strategy session, how to get to the podcast, all that is available of Megan. So please go in the chargepodcast.com, check out the notes, and go ahead and link on to some of that information and really pick that up, because I know it can help your business today. Thank you again, Megan, for joining us. Chargers, we'll see you back here next week at the same time. Make it a great day.
This podcast is ended, but your life doesn't just stop. To continue your inspiring journey, head over to chargepodcast.com and access all the tools and resources mentioned on today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, consider sharing with somebody who may also benefit from the advice provided. That's chargepodcast.com. Until next time, charge in business and life.